Good day, students, and welcome to our new video lecture discussions in subject English. And our discussion for today is about figurative languages. So, what is figurative languages? Figurative languages is a linguistic tool used to convey meaning beyond the literal interpretation of words. It involves using words, phrases, or sentences to create vivid imagery, evoke emotions, and add depth to communication. So, literary authors use figurative languages to add flavor or new flavor to their literary work. So, there are many figurative languages that literary authors use, and we will tackle it one by one. So, first is simile. A simile is a figure of speech that compares two things using like or as to highlight their similarities. Similes make descriptions more vivid and relatable. For example, her hair was soft as silk. So, this comparison helps us imagine the softness of her hair by relating it to something familiar, like silk. If you see like or as in the sentence, it means it is simile. I have here an example question, so I will give you 10 seconds to answer. So the correct answer for this is letter B, because the word like. She runs like the wind. Next is metaphor. A metaphor is a direct comparison stating that one thing is another. Unlike similes, metaphors do not use like or as, but instead suggest a deeper connection between the two things. For example, time is a thief. So, this sentence is suggesting that time steals moment from our lives, not in literal sense, but figuratively, implying how quickly time passes by unnoticed. So I have here again an example question, so please answer. Okay, time's up. So the correct answer there is letter B. So her voice is music to my ears. So next figurative languages is personification. So what is personification? Personification involves giving human qualities or characteristics to non-human entities, such as animals, objects, or ideas. It helps to make descriptions more engaging and relatable by attributing human-like behavior to things that don't possess it. So, for example, the sun smiled down on us. So, here in the sentence, this makes the sun seem warm and welcoming, as if it had a human-like ability to smile. So, I have here again a sample question. So, what is an example of personification here? Okay, the correct answer is letter A. The tree reached for the sky. So next is alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of the same consonant sound at the beginning of words that are close together in a sentence. It is often used in poetry and tongue twisters to create rhythm, mood, or emphasis. For example, she shells by the seashore. The repetition of S sounds ties the phrase together, making it catchy. So again, I have here an example question. So what is an example of alliteration here? Okay, the correct answer is letter A. It is a big brown bear. Next is onomatopoeia. So, onomatopoeia refers to words that imitate the natural sound associated with the object or action they describe. These words bring a sense of realism and immediacy to writing, as they evoke sensory experiences. For example, the leaves rustled in the wind. The word rustled imitates the actual sound of leaves moving. So, I have here again an example of onomatopoeia. Example question. What is an example of onomatopoeia here? The correct answer is letter C. The bacon sizzled in the pan. Next is hyperbole. Hyperbole. Hyperbole is an exaggerated statement or claim not meant to be taken literally. It is used for emphasis or dramatic effect, often to highlight strong feeling or ideas. So for example, I've told you a million times. So this exaggerates the frequency to show frustration, though it's not meant to be taken as a literal count. No. So I have here again an example question. So what is an example of hyperbole here? So the correct answer here is letter A. Is older than the hills. Next is irony. So what is irony? Irony involves a contrast between expectation and reality. It can come in different forms such as verbal irony, saying the opposite of what's meant, or situational irony when events turn out opposite of expectations, and dramatic irony when the audience knows something the characters do not. So for example, the fire station burned down. It's ironic because you would expect a fire station to be resistant to fires, not the victim of one. I have here an example question. What is an example of irony here? Okay? As you listened to our discussion earlier, so the correct answer is letter B. The firefighter's house burned down. So next, we have oxymoron. So what is an oxymoron? Oxymoron is a figure of speech that places two contradictory or opposing words next to each other to create a paradox. It is often used to express complex or nuanced ideas in a concise way. For example, bittersweet. This word pairs two opposite things like bitterness and sweetness to express a complicated emotion like feeling happy and sad at the same time. So what is an example of oxymoron here? So all of these are example of oxymoron. So the correct answer is letter D, all of the above. Cold fire, loud whisper, and bittersweet are example of oxymoron. Next, idiom. An example is a phrase whose meaning is not literal but understood through common use. The expression often cannot be deduced by looking at the individual words. For example, break a leg. This means good luck, especially in the context of performances. So I have here an example question. What is an example of an idiom? So the answer here is letter A. The ball is in your court. Allusion. An allusion is a brief or indirect reference to something outside of the text, such as person, event, or work of art. It relies on the reader's prior knowledge to make the connection. For example, he was a real Romeo with the ladies. This alludes to the character Romeo from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, suggesting that a person is a passionate lover. So what is an example here of an illusion? Okay, the correct answer here is letter A. He's a real Romeo. Next, we have euphemism. So, euphemism is a mild or less direct word or phrase used to replace a more direct or harsh one. It is often used to soften the impact of unpleasant or taboo topics. For example, pass away instead of died. Pass away is a gentler way of referring to someone's death. What is an example of euphemism here? Of course, in our discussion earlier, the correct answer is letter A. She passed away instead of the word die. Next figurative languages is pun. Pun is a play on a word that exploits the multiple meaning of a term or the similarity in sound between two words. Puns can create humor, wordplay, or cleverness. For example, time flies like an arrow. Fruit flies like a banana. This pun plays with the word flies, first referring to the passage of time, then to the insect. So I have here again a sample question in the word or in figurative language pun. So what is an example of pun here? The correct answer is letter C. Time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana. Next is synecdoche. Synecdoche is a figure of speech in which a part of something is used to represent the whole or the whole represents a part. This creates a deeper connection between the parts and the whole in the reader's mind. For example, all hands on deck. Here, hands represent the people who are required to help with a task, not just their hands. What is an example of synecdoche here? So, the correct letter here is letter A. The pen is mightier than the sword. Next is metonymy. So what is metonymy? Metonymy involves a substituting the name of one thing with name of something closely associated with it. So it helps to provide a more vivid or symbolic reference. For example, the White House issued a statement. The White House is a use as a metonym for the US President or the administration, as it is closely appreciated or associated with the office. So what is an example of metonymy here? So the correct answer is letter A. The crown will find an heir. Lastly, we have antithesis or antithesis. Antithesis or antithesis is the juxtaposition of contrasting ideas with a balanced structure, often to highlight differences or to create tension. It's used to emphasize a point by placing two opposing concepts together. For example, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. In this famous opening line from A Tale of Two Cities, the contrasting ideas of best and worst highlighting the chaotic, contradictory nature of the period. So, what is an example of antithesis here or antithesis? So, in our discussion, it is letter E. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So that's all for today. So I hope you learned something from our video lecture discussions. and enjoy your learning experiences, students.